your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up a high mountain, apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no fuller on earth could bleach them. Then Elijah appeared to them along with Moses, and they were conversing with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He hardly knew what to say. They were so terrified. Then a cloud came, casting a shadow over them. From the cloud came a voice, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." Suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone but Jesus alone with them. As they were coming down from the mountain, he charged them not to relate what they had seen to anyone, except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what rising from the dead meant. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Do any of you remember Canadian singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot? He wrote a song, sing, me, 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 me. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my heart could tell. Do you ever want to read someone's mind? Don't you wish you could sometimes? What if we could read Abraham's mind in the first reading, when God asked him to sacrifice his son? I can probably guess he was thinking along these lines. What are you talking about? I left my home country when you called me, my country, my town of much like Elon, only 2 less letters, and I traveled all the way to the Fertile Crescent through this desert because you promised me, God, that I would be the father of many, many nations. And then, after my first child, as an elderly man, you tell me to take him up on the mountain and kill him? What are you talking about? How am I going to be the father of many nations? That is what Abraham was probably thinking. What about the disciples, Peter, James, and John? What do you think they were thinking when all of a sudden Jesus transforms into this big, bright, white light? And they're thinking to themselves, my God, who is this? We thought he was just this itinerant Jewish rabbi. You know, he was a smooth talker, talking about the kingdom. He may have been faith healer too. Who is this? The Son of God? They're probably scratching their heads. We don't understand. This isn't what we signed up for. Reading our minds. What if God could read our minds right here in church? What would God see or hear in our minds? I'm a senior. I'm getting ready to graduate. I don't know if I have a job prospect. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to leave Elon. It's my home. I don't want to leave Elon. Or maybe you're thinking, I'm starved. My stomach is growling. What am I going to have for supper when Mass is over, when that man stops talking? What could be going through our heads? Maybe our children's security or our future security. If God could read read our minds? Maybe. Do you know what this means? Timeout, yeah, in basketball. Technical foul, which the coach from UNCW got yesterday, the second half. It also means transfiguration, capital T. And there's only one person who experienced transfiguration, capital T, and that is Jesus. There are many throughout our salvation history and in our own world history who had a transfiguration with a small letter T. You know some of them. Saul of Tarsus, persecutor of Christians, becomes St. Paul, the great missionary of all the lands. You know Augustine of Hippo, 4th, 5th century saint, 5th century. Playboy, orator, philosopher, became Saint Augustine of Hippo, a great writer, speaker, fantastic. How about Francis Bernardone, a hater of lepers, a spoiled brat growing up, a wannabe knight, became St. Francis of Assisi, lover of the poor and of all created things. Ignatius Loyola, a playboy of sorts, a wannabe soldier, becomes St. Ignatius. Therese, the one who was really spoiled growing up, becomes St. Therese of Lisieux and her little way. And the list goes on and on. How about Maximilian Kolbe, Franciscan priest, who in Auschwitz, as a prisoner, was offering his life in sacrifice for his cellmate's life. Oscar Romero, so many people, small transfiguration in their lives. Being willing to trust like Abraham, like the disciples. Abraham was asked to sacrifice his son, not something God wouldn't do himself. I remember my first days as a deacon in New York City. My mentor, Father Herman, said, "I will never ask you to do what I wouldn't do first." A wonderful philosophy of life. The disciples had to leave the mountain. They had to go down and trust that Jesus was going to instruct them, and if they trusted God, that all would be well, even though they had to give up their lives eventually. What about us? We are called to trust God with our very lives. We are called to have a small transfiguration of sorts, especially during this season of Lent. Where is the secret? It's in the first reading. Did you hear what the messenger of God said to Abraham after the ordeal on the mountain? Because you acted like that and did not withhold your only son, now I give you abundant blessings. For us, what are those things that we hold on to and won't give back to God? How about some of our comfy sins that we get so comfortable around and we like having because it's so hard to challenge ourselves? How about that grudge that's still nestling inside of our gut because I don't care who tells me I got to forgive her, I'm not going to do it. We hold on to even material possessions that come in the way of our small t transfiguration that God wants us to have. Put our total faith and trust in God. It's not an easy road. Shortly before being gunned down by an assassin in Memphis, Martin Luther King told the crowd this: "We have got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter to me now because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned with that now. I just want to do God's will. I'm not worried about anything else." Just saying, I want nothing else but to do God's will, is probably the greatest gift we could give back to God. Not withholding anything for ourselves, but being willing to give God everything, our service, our time, all because we trust and we know that someday